You have to wonder if Sadiq Khan is capable of feeling shame, if he has a moral compass, if he looks at himself and sees what the rest of us see? Because London's pathetic excuse for a mayor has been accused not just of turning a blind eye to grooming gangs in London but also of trying to cover up their existence. This man has wrecked our capital city with his towering incompetence and now stands accused covering up countless young girls who have been raped, drugged and sold for sex by pretending he didn't know about reports of grooming gangs. And despite real, credible current evidence that it's still happening, he's still pretending he didn't know. 9 times in the London Assembly he was asked by the leader of the Tories, Susan Hall, if he knew about the existence of grooming gangs in the capital, and 9 times he refused to answer, pretending he didn't. Now we discover, thanks to this newspaper, that having previously denied the existence of grooming gangs in London, that he's actually read 4 reports in recent years containing harrowing evidence of the abuse. And what's more, he responded to them by email. So, he can't pretend he didn't know about it. So, he lied. And the question has to be why? Doesn't he want to help these desperate young girls, some as young as 9, who reports say were trafficked, sold in crack houses, taken to swanky Mayfair restaurants and sold to rich men for up to £2,000 a time? You'd think that as a father of 2 young women Khan would move heaven and earth to protect these girls. But no, the great mayor of London, the man King Charles recently ennobled, appears to have looked the other way at reports of vulnerable children were being drugged, raped and sold for sex. And again, I ask, why would he do that? We all know Labour have been scared of alienating their Muslim vote over the Pakistani grooming gang scandal that has engulfed the wider UK. Though the religious and ethnic background of gangs in London is not confirmed, you can't blame ordinary people for wondering if Khan is so desperate to protect his Muslim vote, the vote that keeps getting him re-elected, that he's prepared to turn his back while young white girls are being gang raped. And why would he reject a proposal for an independent inquiry into grooming gangs in the capital if, as he's always saying, he's determined to protect children in London? It's almost like he doesn't want to delve deeper into the evidence. This is the man who spends his life reeling off all the expensive initiatives he's put in place to help protect young victims of criminality. He bangs on about his violence and exploitation service which supports youngsters being exploited by criminal gangs in London. Yet when it comes to the reported rape of young girls by grooming gangs, he's just not that interested. If Khan cares as much about children and young people as he says, why doesn't he just put these gangs on notice and say, "I'm coming for you"? Surely any decent human being, any father, anyone with a conscience would do that. But maybe he doesn't because he knows it wouldn't go down too well with Muslims in Tower Hamlets and Hounslow, and where grooming gang victims were identified back in the 2022 inquiry. How does the mayor of a capital city get away with refusing to answer questions about these grooming gangs in the London Assembly, a 25-strong body whose job it is to hold the mayor to account? It's the Weasel Khan's job to answer their questions, not to play silly beggars with Susan Hall, who asked him a very serious question and which he studiously ignored. So again, why is he looking the other way, especially when the Met Police Chief Mark Rowley has finally admitted that there is a steady flow of multi-offender exploitation investigations which feature in the Home Office Grooming Gangs Review? And let's look at what's happening with that inquiry. Remember, this is the inquiry Keir Starmer fought tooth and nail not to have because of the embarrassing answers it might throw up. But finally, after a public outcry, he had no choice. But before it's even properly started, 2 abuse survivors, Fiona Goddard and Eliane Reynolds, have quit their role in it because of what they called contempt and political interference. They said it had become less about the truth and more about a cover-up. They also said the inquiry was trying to downplay the fact these gangs were Pakistani Muslims and widen it to broader issues of sexual exploitation. Eliane Reynolds said, "For many of us these were not incidental factors, the fact the gangs were Pakistani Muslim men. They were central to why we were targeted and why institutions failed to act. And she's bloody right." When Rochdale and Rotherham were first exposed, the establishment bent over backwards to tell us the abuse was not exclusively being perpetrated by Pakistani Muslims. And 15 years, and God knows how many prosecutions on, they're still doing it. Why in God's name is the establishment so desperate to excuse these vile predators? Why is it so desperate to hide their ethnicity? Because what it looks like is that it's protecting them. It looks like it doesn't want to admit who's doing the raping and the drugging because it might offend the Pakistani community. Well, tough if it does. It's happened and it's still happening. That's a fact. And we cannot bury the facts to placate a community. But worse, the establishment is still trying to make out this is about racism when it's simply about filthy predators who target white girls because they believe them to be subhuman trash. As for this latest inquiry, which Keir Starmer never really wanted, it looks like it's turning out to be a box-ticking exercise. And a cover-up! Why else would it shortlist a former police chief and a social worker to chair it when these are precisely the two institutions which were up to their necks in the abuse in both Rotherham and Rochdale? Police and social workers didn't tackle grooming gangs in the past because they were scared of being called racist. Even worse, women in Rotherham said police participated in the abuse. Social services failed so comprehensively to protect children from sex abuse they were warned they could face 5 years in prison. And social services allowed a 15-year-old care home girl to have an Islamic wedding ceremony with a man then proven to have sexually abused the child. How the hell can either of the two people shortlisted be independent? It's like putting a fox in charge of the hen house. But back to the little man Khan, who is still insisting there is no cover-up. Do you believe him? I'm not sure I do. Because what I see is him evading and obfuscating and refusing to answer questions, and I'm wondering why. What I also see is him turning questions about grooming gangs into answers about the exploitation of all children, which isn't what he's been asked about. So, what's he hiding? What's he not saying? Why doesn't he just tell us what he knows? But of course, he won't. Because he doesn't care enough about these girls as much as he cares about the politics around the rape and abuse committed by grooming gangs. I wonder when he looks at his own daughters, now 25 and 23, does he ask himself why he's so determined to deny the care and protection he lavished on them while they were growing up, to the desperate young women who now need his help and who he has turned his back on?